Next up is Shane Kerr from Affilius. Shane, once I heard that he was coming, kindly agreed to give a quick presentation on some work that he's been doing with IRRToolSet and a project to turn that into a fully collaborative open source project.
It doesn't matter which version.
Okay. Just do PDF then.
I hope it works.
There's just a few goals.
No, I don't know. I don't really remember. Okay, so
Shane.
This is if any of you were at the Right meeting in Dubai, this is very similar to a presentation that I gave there, talking about the IRRToolSet and the software community that we're trying to build around that set of tools. Okay, so I'm going to break this up into, it's all wrong. Go back. No, stop. All right, I think maybe we should use the ODP version. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Well, anyway, I'll go ahead and talk. We don't need slides for this. So first I'm going to go over a little bit about what the Internet Routing Registry Toolset is and about Internet Routing Registries in general, and then talk about the specific changes in the way that the software that works with this stuff has been updated recently. Okay, looks good. I may have some sort of weird transition. Okay. So, right, this is where we were. So, this is a pretty typical routing scenario. You're the happy guy on the right-hand side that you see there, or my right, your left, sorry. And you've got this /24 originating at AS64501, going through AS64502. And you know this because when you get an AS route, it shows you the whole path to prevent loops and things like that. So this may be your normal circumstance. Then one day, all of a sudden, it changes to this. And it comes through a different AS. And because of the way the internet works, you really don't have any reason, you don't really know why this happened. It could be that there was a link cut between the two ASs that were coming to you before. It could be someone changed their routing policy. It could be the originating AS no longer appears in the same way. You really don't have any way to know. And you can usually figure this stuff out with your direct peers and maybe one hop out. But the internet is Byzantine, and average AS path, I think, is something like 6 these days or something like that, or maximum AS path length. So it's really hard to figure out what's going on. And that's where the idea of, what's going on here? That's where the idea of the Internet Routing Registry comes in. So it's a database that stores BGP policy information. So it has information about which routes each AS is originating, and it also has more detailed peering information. So within each AS, you can say which routes you accept, which routes you will export, and things like that. And it was done, it's a vendor-neutral language, so it doesn't matter whether you're using Cisco's or Juniper's or software, PC-based software or whatever. It's accessed via Whois. There's a couple of different servers that are available if you want to run your own routing registry. The big one in North America is the RADB. It runs its own custom software. The big one in Europe is the RIPE-NCC. They run a routing registry as part of their number registry. APNIC also runs a routing registry. I think that's a separate database. Also, some private companies run routing registries. And actually, anyone who wants to run a routing registry can just fire up a server, and that's it. That actually, while it's kind of cool from an openness point of view, it makes it a bit difficult to know which particular routing registry you're going to get the information from about any one of your peers. Another thing to consider is there's no mandate anywhere for anyone to publish any of their policy information as far as things like the RIRs are concerned. So there's really quite a mix of quality of information. Some people have no information at all. Some people have extremely detailed information that was last updated 3 years ago when the engineer who did it quit. And some people actually make it a part of their peering policy that if you're going to peer with them, you have to have up-to-date information in a routing registry. And in those cases, obviously, it's quite accurate. So in actual use as an engineer, it's quite simple. You just do a whois lookup, and you can see the format there. It's things you can do if you have software tools to work with it. So this is verbatim from the web page. It's a set of tools to work with internet routing policies, blah, 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 RPSL, blah, blah, blah. And basically the point of having this software tool is, again, to do these more sophisticated things. And I'll talk about those in a second here. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, there's basically 3 main tools that this has. And one of them is just to perform syntax checks, because the RPSL language is quite Byzantine. It's one of the worst written RFCs I've ever read. It's very difficult to understand what's going on. The syntax for each attribute is not the same as the syntax for any other attribute. And it's not like BGP is straightforward to figure out even without added complexity. So those tools can help a lot. It also has tools to query and expand RPSL expressions. Because of the way RPSL is written, you can have an expression that refers to some other expression, which refers to some other expression, and each of these will require a separate lookup. So if you're doing this kind of stuff by hand, your fingers can get tired typing all these whois commands. You can have a piece of paper filled with notes trying to figure out what's going on. And the IRRToolSet has a tool which will actually expand all these out and tell you exactly which routes you should be filtered, which routes are being published as being accepted, and which routes are being published as being filtered. And then the third tool, which is actually kind of sexy in theory, although I don't know in practice how useful it is. It requires a lot of caution, is RTconfig. And this is a tool where the idea is you can actually produce router configurations based on the contents of the Internet Routing Registry. So if someone publishes a list of peers, you can say, look, if I'm getting a route that appears to be originating from someone that they don't have listed as a peer, I'm going to filter that, because that's not what they publish as their policy. Someone's trying to spoof, someone's trying to inject some garbage into the routing table. There have actually been presentations. People have proposed using the Internet Routing Registry and I think Quagga as well, or maybe whatever came before Quagga. I don't know. Yeah. So now there's a little bit of history to the IRRToolSet. It's actually quite an old and crufty and ugly piece of software, written in C++ as the guy's first project at university type thing. But it was originally done as part of the Routing Arbiter Toolset project. And this was a project, I think, funded by US Department of Defense or something like that, based on this observation that the routing table was growing huge and we were going to blow up all our routers. So they had this idea to, instead of having it carried, the full routing table carried everywhere, they're going to put some central servers and consolidate this and do it that way, which it never took off, but this kind of stayed over as a legacy from that effort. And since it was sort of funded as a kind of research project, when the funding ended and the people involved with it got their degrees and went on to real jobs, the software kind of got abandoned. But the RIPE NCC, as one of the people running a routing registry, found it interesting to take over the maintenance of this. And the community said, look, we use this software, it's useful to us. So they went ahead and took over the project, renamed it from IRRToolSet to IRRToolSet, and that was it. But it turns out the RIPE NCC isn't really a software development organization, and they do develop software, but only for their own purposes. It's open source, but if your needs aren't RIPE NCC's needs, then it's not so useful to you. So the idea was, let's transfer it from the RIPE NCC to an organization that is a software development organization and has more experience doing community-based software, so that the people who are actually using it can make changes and fixes as they want. So it was moved to ISC, the Internet Software Consortium. And ISC took over the project, maintained it for a few years, and then it didn't receive a lot of attention from ISC because it wasn't one of their main efforts. They work mostly on DNS software, they do DHCP software, they have they work with some people doing NTP stuff and things like that. Kind of internet core software, not so much for the routing stuff. So they didn't have a lot of expertise in this area, not much interest. And so in the end, the idea was to take it out of this kind of cathedral style, if you're familiar with Cathedral and the Bazaar. It's kind of a cathedral style maintenance, old school BSD, where there's a group of really good developers who maintain it, but there's not much involvement from the community. The idea was, let's open it up, throw it out there for the community, and they can do whatever they want to as far as maintaining it. So as of mid-2008, ISC maintained, well, exactly as I just said here. And there were a lot of patches that were sitting out there because there's a fairly active community who's on the mailing list, and they submit patches and things like that, but there wasn't much interest in actually taking these patches and merging them in, doing that work. So the RIPE NCC said, well, again, they were in the same situation where, from the RIPE NCC's point of view, it was something that their community wanted in order to use their routing registry. So they approached ISC and said, look, can we have someone build this track site, make it an open source thing, and actually have it something that anyone can go to and work with if they want to? So they did that, and now the track site is up. The source code is in Subversion. All the patches, well, not most of the patches have been merged, and we're waiting right now on a little bit more work. We have a couple of bugs that are marked as must be completed before the first release. There is interest in the community. Unfortunately, this is no one's real day job to work on this software. It's always a sideline. People who are network engineers generally don't spend too much time doing software engineering, and when they do, they want to do a small fix here and a small fix there and move on with their real work. So it remains to be seen how well this effort's going to go, although I have to say I'm pretty happy with it right now, even though it hasn't had a lot of new releases. The community is able to make the changes that they want to at this point. So there's the URL, nothing too surprising. You can go there now, and it's all up and working. And this is the email address for the mailing list. Oh, and that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Shane.